Hey howdy hey, how is everybody doing, and welcome back to Disney Daily. Now you all probably know by now that I love exploring Pixar's biggest unanswered questions, and Pixar's newest movie Soul is full of them. However, I think the most important question that remains is what ended up happening to Joe and 22. Well, in today's video we explore the different possible outcomes for each character. Let's first take a look at Joe Gardner. At the end of the movie we know that Joe travels back to the great before to give his Earth badge to 22, after realizing that she truly knew what it meant to appreciate life and all the beauty that it has to offer. After he convinces her to go to Earth, we see him making his way to the great beyond, for he has accepted death at this point. But he is suddenly stopped by one of the Jerrys, who tells him that he will be given a second chance at life and asks, "How are you going to spend your life?" To which Joe replies, "I'm not sure, but I do know I'm going to live every minute of it." From there, we are left to wonder what avenue did Joe end up taking, since he was left with two tempting offers. Does he become a professional jazz musician in Dorthea's band, or does he take the full-time position as a middle school band teacher? There is also the possibility that he drops both these choices and completely starts down a new path with a different hobby or career. In my personal opinion, I think it's a little bit of all three. I think with Joe's new perspective on life by the end of the film, we know he wouldn't be truly happy doing one or the other, but rather combining all the things he loves and appreciating every moment doing them. I think he will take the full-time position as a teacher due to the fact that the film spent a lot of time emphasizing Joe's impact on young musicians like Connie. But I also think he will put himself out there more musically by playing at local jazz bars and venues, perhaps even joining Dorthea whenever she is in town. In addition to this, I think he will finally take a leap of faith and ask out that Lisa woman we keep hearing about throughout the movie, and he will make more time to connect with his mother on a deeper, more personal level. Lastly, I believe Joe will look to connect more with those in the community, such as Des the barber, who he never really took time to get to know, even after years of going to him for his haircuts. Joe's new outlook on life will lead him to a happy, more fulfilled life, and I hope we get a sequel to get everything confirmed officially. Now, the bigger question, what exactly happened to 22? Compared to Joe, her new life on Earth is a complete mystery with no clues to go off of whatsoever. Well, as I was researching this video, I did stumble across another alternative ending that was almost put in the film, which answers this exact question. In an interview with USA Today, director Pete Docter gave some insight into what 22's life on Earth would look like, and I have to admit I kinda wish we got to see this version played out. In this alternative ending, we see Joe continue his life touring with Dorthea, but also teaching private music lessons to students, and one day Joe gets a new student who ends up being 22, and through their interaction with one another, he is actually able to recognize her. Now, for some, that might be a good enough answer in regards to what happens to 22, since it came from the director himself. But to others like myself, since this cut didn't make the final version of the movie, I don't think we can count on it as an official answer to what 22's new Earth identity is. So for those of you who believe that 22's Earth identity is still in question, this next part is for you, and it's none other than a theory. My theory is, what if 22 became another Pixar character that we already know? Now, this theory assumes that the Pixar theory is true and accurate, and so if the Pixar theory is true, then it is possible that 22 ended up in another Pixar character's body because all of the movies exist in the same universe. But just who could she be? Well, I first had to look back at the Pixar theory timeline, and since I think Soul is based in the 2000s, I was able to weed out a lot of options and narrow it down to just a few movies, which are Toy Story 3 and 4, Finding Nemo, Ratatouille, Up, and Inside Out. After I had the movies picked out, I looked at all the possible characters 22 could be, and one stood out the most to me personally, and it was Riley. To me, both characters share some similarities that could potentially link them. Now, before I get into those, I do want to recognize that everything I'm about to say can easily be debunked, because in the movie, 22 does say everything in the great before is a hypothetical. So all the similarities I draw between the two characters, from what she looks like to the way she acts, could completely change. However, this first link really convinces me that there may be a connection. Now, the biggest link to them both was that Pete Docter actually directed both movies, and Soul was in the works at Pixar right after Inside Out was released. So since he had just finished Inside Out, he could have easily had Riley still on his mind when creating 22. Not to mention, both films deal with very mature topics such as the complexities of human life. The second component that I think links the two characters is their outlooks on life. Riley is mostly driven by joy as her main emotion, as we see throughout the movie. And the same can be said about 22 by the end of the movie. 22 had developed so many happy feelings associated with Earth, from all of of her experiences that I would argue her main driving emotion would end up being joy. The third aspect that I believe may link them is the fact that both characters experience sadness and some sort of identity crisis. Riley was sad due to her move, and she started to lose her sense of self as all of the islands of personality started to break down, while 22 starts feeling sadness and self-doubt after she becomes a lost soul. Another small detail about these characters was that they both had buck teeth as a defining physical attribute. And before I finish, I would like to point out that in the movie, from a geographic standpoint, it does look like 22 could be possibly landing in Asia somewhere, which is what many believe. However, I would argue that she could end up anywhere due to the fact that the world does keep on turning, which you can actually see in one of the opening scenes earlier on in the film. So I think it's possible that by the time she actually lands on Earth, it could be in a completely different area of the world, at least in my opinion. Well, that concludes this episode of Disney Daily. I hope you enjoyed this video today, and let me know what you think down in the comments. And remember, it's just a theory, so have fun with it. As always, thanks for being my guest here at Disney Daily. Until next time.